Okay, so this video is going to look at some special numbers that we need to know about. A couple of them you've probably heard before, some of them you might not have. Okay, so firstly, we've got even numbers. Even numbers end in a 0, a 2, a 4, a 6 or an 8. So the numbers that's furthest to the right of them is one of those numbers. So the examples by here I've given are 28, 94 and 70. And if you look at the number that's on the right, they're 8, 4 and 0, so they are even numbers. Notice how there can be other numbers in there as long as the number to the right is 0, 2, 4, 6 or 8. The important thing about even numbers is that they can be divided by 2 without a remainder, and that's important in some of the calculations and mathematical processes that we need to do and that we'll do later on, because sometimes we have to see the type of number that will fit into something else, and it's handy to be able to look at a number, say, oh, it's even, therefore I know 2 will go into it. An odd number ends in 1, 3, 5, 7 or 9. So it's the opposite to the evens. The evens have 0, 2, 4, 6 and 8. The odds have 1, 3, 5, 7 or 9. So the examples by here are 31, 87 and 65. Just as the even numbers can be divided by 2, the odd numbers can't be divided by 2 without giving a remainder or fraction. So if I divided 31 by 2, it would give me 15 and a half. I've got that fraction part to it. Again, it's good to know and be able to define the odd numbers, because like I said, when we needing to see if a number goes into it, if we can see that it's odd, we know instantly that 2 won't go into it. Prime numbers are numbers that can only be divided by 1 or itself without remainder. And the important thing here is that we don't include 1. I would learn the first few prime numbers. You won't be able to learn every single one as they go on for infinity, but the examples of 2, 3, 5, 7, 11 and 13 and 17, if you can remember those, they will help you. The prime numbers are actually used in computer programming and computer codes, but we'll look at that when we do products of prime numbers. If you look at each of those numbers, 2, 3, 5 and 7, you won't find a number that goes into them, or excluding 1, that won't give a remainder. For instance, 4 isn't a prime number because I can do 4 divided by 2 and it gives me 2. 9 isn't a prime number because I can do 9 divided by 3 gives me 3. Factors are numbers that can go into another one without remainder. So if I divide a number by one of its factors, I'll get a whole number. So for instance, 3 is a factor of 9 because if I divide 9 by 3, I get a whole number, 3. On the other hand, 3 isn't a factor of 8 because 8 divided by 3 is 2 and I get a remainder of 2, or 2/3. You should note as well that 1 can be a factor, and in fact 1 is a factor of any number because 1 goes into anything. Similarly, the number itself is a factor of itself. So 5 is a factor of 5 because 5 can go once into 5. Multiples then are another number multiplied by a whole number. So for instance, 6 is a multiple of 2 because it's 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. 15 is a multiple of 5 because 5 times 3 is 15. So a multiple is kind of the reverse of a factor. And again, we'll do more in depth and more about factors and multiples in another video. Powers and indices are the last type of, or indices are the last type of special numbers. We'll look at those in a separate video because there's more to understand about them and more to know about them. Have a look at these numbers then and decide whether they're odd, even, prime numbers, factors or multiples. And remember, they might be more than one of those things. Okay, so 11 can't be divided by anything apart from 1 or 11 without giving a remainder. So it's definitely a prime number, and because it ends in a 1, that tells us it's an odd number. With the second one, yes, 2 and 12 are even, but it's actually saying what is 2 of 12. So 2 of 12 is a factor. 2 is a factor of 12 because 2 will go into 12 6 times, and it doesn't give any sort of remainder. 8, well, 8 isn't a prime number because you can divide 8 by 4, you can divide 8 by 2 without giving a remainder. So all we can say is it's an even number because it ends in 8. 12 of 6, well, yes, 12 and 6 are even numbers, but it's asking you what is 12 of 6. And because it's not 12 fitting into 6, it's 6 fitted into 12, that's telling us that 12 is a multiple of 6. 6 will go into 12 twice. And then finally 9, well, 9 isn't a prime number because we can divide 9 by 3 times and give us 3. And it's also an odd number, but it is an odd number because it ends in either 1, 3, 5, 7 or 9.